Greetings everybody, I'm obviously Jesus, and welcome to the fourth and final Patreon video for the month of May 2017. Today I'm going to talk about veganism. Veganism is a subject that for various reasons I'll go into here in just a second is very near and dear to my heart, so I want to talk about it, and this also serves sort of a clerical function in the sense that a few people have asked me to do Cooking with Christ, some more episodes of that series, that little mini-series I had back in my channel where I would cook and put it on YouTube. So anyway, in order to do that and to explain why when we do Cooking with Christ I'm going to be cooking vegan food, here is a video about veganism that will hopefully explain that to a satisfactory degree. And here she is, my favorite Maya. This is Maya. She's my friend's dog. She's the best in the whole wide world. Mwah! And yeah, she'll probably pop in and out in this video. Look, I'm T. Martin now. You want to buy some CSGO skins, children? Just give me your parents' credit card information. Here's a golden retriever. I'm a nice person. Anyway, this is Maya. She's my favorite. I love her more than almost anything. And so let's talk about veganism. Alright, now some of you OJ fans might remember that I made a video on veganism a long time ago, many years before I left YouTube, and basically I took it down and said that it was kind of silly, and that basically being a vegan was kind of pointless. And what I did in that video was basically I committed the naturalistic fallacy, and I wanted to address this before anything else. Anyone who says to you that eating meat is either necessary or moral because it is natural and that's what's been happening for years and years, that is called the naturalistic fallacy. The assumption that just because something is natural, that it is good. Maya is apparently trying to eat my notes. Hello, sweetheart. But yes. The idea that something has to be good because it's natural is obviously false, because there are things that grow naturally that kill you, and obviously you don't want to be killed, so if you go out and eat a poisonous mushroom that grows completely naturally, then it kills you. Therefore, just because something is natural does not mean it is good. So just because human beings have been eating meat, and that is the way of things in general, in general terms in most societies, just because that's been going on for hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of years, doesn't mean that it is automatically good or automatically free from questioning. And that is the first thing that you need to accept before you talk about veganism, which is that not just because something has been done for a while, or that it is seemingly the natural order of things, which is in dispute, which we'll talk about a little bit later, just because it's been done does not mean it is good. So get that idea out of your head. Hello. And I want to talk first about my personal path to veganism, because veganism is something that, honestly, when I made that video that I talked about before, is not something that I ever thought I would do. I thought that it was some kind of fad, that it was just for people who were overly sympathetic to animals for no real reason. So, I started out as a vegan thinking those things still, and I did my veganism thing for love at the very beginning. I was in a relationship with, of course, a girl, or a woman, I suppose, if I don't want to be patronizing. And this woman, I asked her, she had been a vegan for about a year at that point, maybe a little more, and I asked her straight up if it bothered her that I ate meat and fish and stuff in front of her. And she answered honestly, and which is exactly what I asked for, and she said yes. Now here I am, I'm not a big person who always thought that meat was a big part of my identity. I don't have any particular, cultural relationship with it. It's not like I'm an Italian, I eat Italian sausages all the time or something. It's not like I had any cultural identification with any particular kind of meat. I mean, I grew up by the sea, so I ate a lot of seafood and I always kind of liked it, but it wasn't a part of me. It wasn't something that I fused to my identity in some way. And I think that's what keeps a lot of people from even considering veganism, because they have some cultural identification with it that becomes part of their identity. And that's a problem that you have to overcome on an individual level, but again, did not happen for me. So here I am with no real attachment to meat or seafood or anything besides, oh, I kind of like these kinds of things. And I didn't even like some kinds of meats and seafoods. Like, I didn't like steak. I was never ever a steak person. I wasn't a real burger person. I was always more of a seafood person, generally speaking. So I had no attachment to any of these things with my psyche, really. And I figured if this is the person I was about, it was 2013, so I would have been 20 at the time. I hadn't turned 21 yet. So I figured I'm going to spend 60 years with this person that I'm talking to right now and asking about veganism, who is a vegan. I don't want to spend about 60 years, could be, 70, 80 years, depending on how long we live. I don't want to spend 60 to 80 years together with this person and bother them on a daily basis because of what I eat. It would seem incredibly selfish to me to do that. So I started veganism cold turkey, or cold tofurkey, I suppose, for love. And through love, I find that something like this is easy to do, full stop. And now, of course, this isn't going to be true for everybody. Not everybody's going to come to it this way. Not everybody is going to, meet somebody in their life who's going to cause them to do this. But for me, veganism was, at the very first, at the outset, an act of love, because I didn't want to bother the person that I love for the rest of their lives, assuming we were going to spend the rest of those lives together. And as you probably gleaned if you watched my earlier comeback videos, we are not together anymore, so you might be asking, hey OJ, why did you stick with it? And first and foremost, health reasons. Health reasons were the most immediately apparent thing that kept me sticking with veganism even after that relationship that caused me to start becoming a vegan ended. So I used to have really, really bad IBS. I remember a time when I was 15, I was sitting in my mother's car because I wasn't driving at that time, obviously, on account of being 15. And I remember sitting there at a gas station, and I don't know what I had just eaten. It could have been some kind of lactose thing, could have been some kind of meat thing. I felt like I was being pulled apart at the center. I had such bad irritable bowel syndrome. I don't know, it's kind of an umbrella term. It doesn't really mean anything specific, but for me, it meant gas pains all the time. At least once every 2 weeks, I would be in the bathroom having the trots, the shits, the runs, whatever you happen to call them in your local dialect. I would be having diarrhea friggin' 5 times. It was always 5 or 6 times for some odd reason. I had it so often that I got the chance to count. And it would be extremely painful. And sometimes, in the worst case, like in this car at this gas station, I would feel like before actually having to go to the bathroom, I was being pulled apart at the center, at my waistline, being tugged apart and, just ripped in half, like being drawn and quartered or drawn and halved, I guess, by horses. It was ridiculous. It just was insane amounts of pain every couple weeks or so. And veganism, for whatever reason, I don't know if I was lactose intolerant. I've never been tested for that. I don't know if it was something to do with how my body processed meat or seafood or anything. But when I became a vegan, that happens now once, maybe a year, if that. Happens once a year as opposed to once every 2 weeks or so, like clockwork. So veganism has been absolutely one of the best things I've ever done for my health. I am not a person who exercises a lot, if you can't tell. So, I mean, to be able to eat a diet that still has stuff that I like, that tastes good, and still be able to have a healthy, bowel system and digestive tract, that is, to me, one of the top reasons to just try veganism, especially if you have bad IBS, or you potentially are lactose intolerant, or you potentially have issues processing animal protein. I absolutely 100% recommend just trying veganism for a few months to see if you would do it just for health reasons. But we're not going to spend this entire video talking about health reasons and my personal story. We're also going to talk about it philosophically and, the moral and, other philosophical issues that go into a person becoming and staying a vegan. Now, there's a lot of angles to this, there's a lot of approaches, but one of the first ones that I'm going to talk about is something that has become increasingly more true the longer I've been vegan. As you become and as you stay vegan for longer, it seems weirder and weirder to you, or at least it happened to me this way. It seems just weirder and weirder that people eat meat and seafood, and it's almost like people sometimes don't realize what they're doing or question it that much. And one of the things that I keep thinking about, and I always come back to when people ask me about my veganism, I am not one of those preachy vegans who goes out and tries to convert people. I mean, I don't talk about it unless it's asked, and like I said, I want to do this because I want to, preface the Cooking with Christ videos, and also because this is something that's, important, and you obviously consent to watching this video by clicking on it. So I don't talk about it unless prompted, really. And one of the things that makes sense to me more and more the more I go on, I've been a vegan for about 4 years, a little longer than 4 years now. One of the arguments that makes the most sense to me is that if you wouldn't eat a dog, a doggy, like this one right here, if you wouldn't eat this face, then you really shouldn't, hello sweetheart, you really shouldn't eat a cow, a pig, or really any other sentient animal. Cows, pigs, chickens especially, have rich emotional lives and the ability to form attachments in the same exact way that cute little puppies and kitties do. So there is no difference. Just because we've domesticated some breeds and other breeds are kept out of our lives at farms and in slaughterhouses and are killed in the hundreds of thousands every week, I guess, I don't know the exact number, but they're killed en masse in basically a genocidal way. If you wouldn't eat this right here, this beautiful creature who can form attachments and loves me, and you wouldn't eat your own dog or your cat or whatever animal you happen to have, then you absolutely should not eat a cow, a pig, a chicken. Any sentient animal has the same capacity as Maya here to form attachments. You wouldn't do it to this creature because you value them. You've been taught to value this creature because she could form attachments and can love and can care and is loyal to you. But you haven't been taught that a cow can do that, but just because you haven't been taught that doesn't mean it's not true. Based on that, the educational system of our society, both your parents and more formal education, has taught you that they're different, but objectively, in terms of their brain power, they are the same. So the next time you bite into your steak, consider that the cow that died for that meal is no more or less thoughtful or capable of what you perceive as caring or any other emotion as your dog or your cat that's probably in your home as you eat. And one of the good things is that it's not as hard as it once was to convince people, especially younger people, like people my age, around in their mid-20s, that eating meat is not very good. So vegetarianism is actually having a big uptick right now, and it's pretty easy to get people on that train, the no meat, no seafood train, because you can appeal to them in that way and say, you know, hey, there's this dog and there's this cow, they're equal, and we shouldn't eat either of them. So that's pretty easy, but veganism is more than that. I didn't even bother making a formal definition of veganism because I think it's penetrated society at that point. But vegans don't eat meat, they don't eat fish, and they also don't eat anything that ever came from a live animal. So no honey, no eggs, no milk, no dairy products of any kind. So basically, and a lot of people take it further and take it from a diet to a lifestyle where they don't eat anything, or excuse me, they don't use anything that ever came from an animal, or any, shampoos or any products that were ever tested on animals. So, for those of you who don't know what a vegan is, now you do. But it's a lot harder to get people on the veganism train than it is the vegetarianism train, because that means a lot more sacrifice, or, in theory, a lot more sacrifice than just giving up meat and fish. It means your ice creams, your eggs, anything that's made with milk or eggs, which is actually a ton of shit. There are tortilla chips. Yes, Maya. Yes, dear. Yes. All right. There are tortilla chips made with milk, for example. So it means a lot of reading ingredient labels. It means a lot of work trying to figure out what brands use sugar that isn't derived from animal bones. It means a lot of work trying to establish what you can and cannot eat. And it's even worse if you, Maya, oh my God, what are you doing, sweetie? What are you doing? It's a lot of work, essentially, to get all of that in your head and keep it consistent as a lifestyle. And, I am sympathetic to that. It's become sort of, it's become sort of second nature to me, having done it for 4 years. But it's definitely a very daunting task to get somebody to give up everything that veganism technically requires, especially if you're taking it to be a lifestyle and not just a diet, rather than simply giving up meat and fish, which seems quite small by comparison. So it's much easier to get people on the vegetarianism train versus veganism. And people always question me. They say, what about honey? What about wool? What about shellfish? Honey and wool don't really appear on the level to hurt animals or anything like that. And shellfish, of course, they have nervous systems that are not nearly as complex as a more sentient animal like a dog or a pig or a chicken or something like that. So those are the most frequent objections that I find in my personal life when I talk to people, at least, that people make to veganism. And they say, oh, why don't you just get these things? Why don't you scale it back a bit? And I suppose you could, but I think I want to talk about next the idea of speciesist arrogance, which is something that really bothers me. And it might not bother you. It's something that definitely is, very dependent on your education, how you feel about this, depending on how you grow up, how you perceive things, and how you're taught about other species. But one of the things that really bothers me is this speciesist arrogance that even if we don't hurt an animal or something, that we can just go and take what we want. And it's about simply nothing other than the fact that they're not experiencing any pain, or at least not that much pain compared to what we get from it. It's this idea, this sort of weird a priori assumption, basically, that animals are our property, and even if we're not hurting them, we get to take what we want from them up to the point where we're hurting them, which is something that still persists in vegetarians a lot, which is kind of funny that they don't really stop and think about this. So the idea that basically animals are our property, so we don't have to go and obtain any kind of consent from them just to take what we want, that they are somehow subservient to us in an objective way rather than just because of how we're taught. People genuinely believe on a very deep level that animals are inferior to us, that we are either the superior animal or the best animal or on a whole other level and not animals at all, and then below us, whatever we happen to be, there are the animals, these subservient animals who are humans' tools, basically. We get to gather what we want from them. We get to take what we want, when we want, and some people make the oh so hard sacrifice of simply not hurting them that much and taking what they want still. So that's pretty fucked up, I think, honestly. I don't know how else to term it, because I really don't think there's any other way to say it other than that's fucked up, and basically stems from a lack of education, because the only way you can say that human beings are superior animals or not animals at all, and every other animal is superior to us, is, if you're not educated. Human beings are animals, there are human animals, and then not below us are there other animals. On the side of us, on the same level, are other animals. So human beings, dogs, cats, fish, pigs, everything, the entire animal kingdom in terms of moral objective value is not a pyramid with humans at the top. It is one big straight line. Hello, Maya. And do you want to know where this idea stems from? This idea stems from the Bible, or the Torah, I believe, in Genesis, where God creates the animals and says to Adam, or whoever the hell he says it to, that all the animals are there for us. If you believe that human beings have the right in any way to take from animals without consent, even if you consider yourself an atheist or an agnostic, you are basically buying the religious fucking Kool-Aid and saying that human beings are owed something by other species because somebody said so. But the fact of the matter is that it's just killing. It's killing, it's taking, whatever you do, it is simply killing an animal or taking an animal without killing it, and the only reason you're doing it is because you don't get in trouble for it. There is no other reason. It has nothing to do with an imaginary hierarchy of species that is in your head or was taught to you by your parents or your teachers or whomever. It has nothing to do with that. It is simply because you do not get in trouble for it. But I know that as a person, I don't want to die. I don't want someone to come and cut my hair without my consent, even if it doesn't hurt me, and take that hair and use it without even asking me. So why would you do it to another creature? Not because you're better than another creature, simply because you have more power and you don't get in trouble for it. But that seems like a shitty, completely detached reason to do anything, much less harm or take from another creature apart from yourself. You wouldn't do that to another human being, and we've already dispelled the idea that human beings are anything but artificially superior to other species, so why would you take from an equal if you wouldn't take from a human? You wouldn't do that. You couldn't get away with it. So it's simply a power relations game where you can take from other creatures and nobody says shit because they're disempowered and they don't have voices and they don't have representation in society. So the only reason you get away with it is because you're more powerful in terms of the way society is structured, not because you're objectively better. So basically, you're a predator. You are a coward and a predator. You are taking from something that simply can't speak up to stop you. And to me, the more I, eat vegan, and the more I think about it, the more the distance I put between myself and my past habits, the more that seems profoundly fucked up, and it seems profoundly fucked up that people don't even stop to think about it that way. Basically, if you're an agnostic or an atheist, my view is you have an obligation to question your taking from animals without their consent in the same way you have an obligation to question basically everything else that is sent down as a supposed edict from God, because that's where it is. Even if you were agnostic or an atheist, there was some religious ancestor who made it normal, who believed that, who drank that Kool-Aid and said, okay, yeah, these animals are here for me, so now every future generation of my family is going to eat meat and use wool and leather and all that shit. So, that's just the way it is now. So you have an obligation to question that like any other unsubstantiated religious edict, because that's where it comes from. It's a religious tradition to treat animals like they are resources for us rather than equals, which is what the animal kingdom actually looks like. It is flat. It is not stratified, the animal kingdom. It is simply all equals. But what human beings have done is, through centuries of miseducation, have made it a pyramid with human beings on top. So basically, you need to question that. Otherwise, you are basically flouting your duty as an atheist or an agnostic or as a person of supposed intellect. You have to question these things. Otherwise, you continue things that are negative. Because as far as I'm concerned, the only argument that makes sense for eating meat or using animal products of any kind in your life is simply that you don't get in trouble for it. You like the taste of the meat. You like what your animal tested shampoo gives you. You like that feeling. So you use it and you like it and you don't get in trouble for it. And that's the only argument that I find to be unassailable for eating meat, basically, because it's simply a power relations argument. You don't get in trouble for it. You get what you want easily. And that's the only, thing that makes sense. It's bald-faced arrogance. That's all it is. And let's not forget that the animal farming industry is also objectively horrible for the environment if you care about, this little thing we live on called Earth and can't escape. And honestly, there's people out there I know will already say, oh, veganism is expensive, it costs so much. It does not. It truly, truly does not. It is a complete and total myth. People go into Whole Foods and they go to the vegan section and they see all these processed mock meats and mock cheeses made out of like friggin' almonds and shit, and they see all the fake field roast burgers and whatnot, and those might be good, but they are completely and totally not representative of what it actually costs to eat a vegan diet. If you just avoid those stupid processed mock meats and mock cheeses and mock whatever you're missing, mock seafood, all that shit that's processed and expensive, and you buy actual vegetables and lentils and grains, and you avoid all this bullshit organic stuff, and you're not afraid arbitrarily of GMOs like some moron who doesn't understand that half the food you eat is already GMO'd by, it has been for decades, like bread, for example. If you buy smart and you buy actual stuff rather than processed shit that's designed to, look like the stuff you're missing out on by being a vegan, then you won't actually have much expense in terms of food. You can eat vegan on food stamps, you can eat vegan at the poverty level, you can eat vegan in basically any economic arrangement if you avoid the pitfalls of it. So I don't want to hear that as an excuse either. Honestly, like I said, the only excuse I'll accept is I'm an arrogant bastard and I don't care that the enslavement and or genocide of other species is going on. I get my milk, I get my meat, and I like the taste, and I don't get in trouble for it, so that's fine with me, and that's all that matters to me. Basically, that's the only thing that you have to admit in order to eat meat. I want you to either try veganism or admit that to yourself in your own mind. I don't care if you do it in the comment section, but I want you to realize that if you're going to continue to eat meat and use the product of, animals that are no different from you or your dog or your cat, if you're going to believe in this falsified pyramid of the animal kingdom with humans on top, then at least admit to yourself then that you're simply doing it because it's convenient and it's how you were taught, and you're basically being a slave to tradition. Meanwhile, cows en masse every day are killed and enslaved and forcibly impregnated to make the most milk so that you can consume it and think nothing of the consequences. So that's what I want you to admit to yourself, that you simply don't care and do it because you can get away with it, not because you're superior to any other animal alive. And speaking of, Maya, come here, come here. Here is one of these wonderful animals who has been digging. I'm not superior to her in any way, and I would never harm her or myself or another human being or any animal that has the capacity to think or feel in any way, no matter how big or small compared to human beings' brains. I will not harm any animal because I am not one of those people who's going to perpetuate a miseducated, arrogant system. And that's why I am a vegan. That's why I continue to be a vegan, in addition to reasons of health and love. I'm obviously Jesus, your favorite emasculated liberal vegan cuck. I am signing off for now. I will see you in June 2017. And before anyone says it, there are these things called vitamins that you can take. So I don't want to hear about how human beings need meat for nutrients. Meat was just a convenient food source during nomadic times that people continued to eat, and then blessed with the idea that God put the animals here for us, which is completely stupid.